This is the Andre Segovia Show.
Hey everyone, it's Andres coming at you with another video. On this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about squatters and so-called squatters' rights. I have a few clips that I pulled up because I wanted to go over them with you. And before I get into any of that, and some of you might be wondering why I'm going to be covering this late after the big news that transpired. I believe it was in April in New York that made national headlines. That's old news considerably for some people. Well, it's not for those of us that are in the industry, both a property owner, property manager, and in real estate. I'm a real estate broker, and I've been in construction before that when I work with the banks, in this case, REOs. I had to deal with this before. And for a lot of people, this case was a very, I guess, an eye-opening experience for a lot of them. Whereas for us, we've been complaining about this for the longest time. But I honestly had a question like, wait, we're complaining about this law, but when the heck did that become a law in the first place? And before I get into any of that, for those of you that are new around here, this is my website on your screen there, www.segovia.com. That's where you can find anything and everything about me, and also fast links over to my Substack and Locals. Locals is where I even have other exclusive content that only lives there, because after the censorship that was happening with YouTube, after they asked me to be a partner with them, and it's just after 2020, it was just ridiculous. I'm like, you know what? I got to take my stuff somewhere else. This is before I landed a partnership with Rumble as well. So just letting you know, some stuff might feel a little spread out, and the place where everything's funneled through is my website, so you can get to that a lot quicker. Go to the podcast header. You'll be able to get quick filters to whoever I've interviewed on my program, the blog, the library, the podcast, and video exclusive episodes that don't appear anywhere else. And not even on the podcast, they are here. So yeah, I've probably done like at least 1,000 episodes, but for the main podcast, it shows like it's at least 300 and something. No, it's way, way, way more. But just letting you know, a lot of stuff there for you to check out. Without further ado, we're going to go to this situation that happened in New York, or in this case, the borough of Queens. So I pulled up this segment of the clip. I haven't seen this whole thing. I've only seen a section of it. I'm intending to play the whole thing, but let's just get to the main part of it. So this is something that property owners have faced. I'm in California. This incident is in New York. Very similar situations, and it shouldn't surprise anybody. But if you do become a property owner, this could be a situation that you find yourself facing. So let's see this thing, the report.
You understand how this day ended.
We need the police right away.
With multiple 911 calls and arrests. We have to start at the beginning.
Adele, the hardest question is, how do you say your name?
We met Adele Andaloro outside the home her parents left her in Flushing, Queens. She's in the process of selling it.
No, he locked it.
But she's been locked out. She claims squatters moved in on February 6th and refused to leave.
What's it like being here knowing you can't go inside of your own home?
It's enraging. It really is.
In New York, squatters have rights after 30 days.
By the time that someone does their investigation and they do their work and their job, we'll be well over the 30 days, and this man will have stolen my home. And now she's back.
Just after wrapping up our interview, a woman showed up.
What are you doing in the house? Are you renting this house? Why are you here?
She unlocked the front door, saw our cameras, and took off.
It's open. Let's go in the house. It's open.
Adele and her daughter, with the property deed in hand, went inside.
This is my furniture. These are my curtains.
She didn't just find her belongings inside.
There's a man sleeping right there. Get out of my house.
She found two men.
How long have you lived here?
I moved in about 2 days ago.
They've called the police on me, and I've called the locksmith. I didn't come in illegally. The door was open.
Police started interviewing neighbors and looking for documents.
Do you have something that shows that you've been here for more than 30 days?
They took the man who told me he had been renting for 2 days out in handcuffs
They got one out.
and escorted the other guy off the property.
Now you're afraid to come out.
I'm not coming out. This house is empty. This is my home. My locksmith is on the corner waiting to change my locks. And it's not fair. It's not fair that I, as the homeowner, should be having to go through this.
How you doing?
Minutes later, a locksmith showed up, but police gave her a warning before they left.
I may end up in handcuffs today if this man shows up here and says that I have illegally evicted him. I said to them,
Yeah.
Let him take me to court the way I've been told to take him to court. But today, I'm not leaving my house.
Less than 10 minutes after police left and the locks were changed,
That's not going on.
the man who claims to be the one actually leasing the house shows up.
Call the
Lovely
police
guy.
again.
With the other guy, police took off the property.
Do you see this? This guy just literally broke down my door, broke through myself and my daughter, to get in here. This guy just forced himself into my house.
No, he did not.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
And so did you.
Ma'am.
You broke through the front door.
Officer.
The man called the police on her.
So why is it that I have to leave and he doesn't have to leave?
Because technically he can't be kicked out. We need to go to court.
They consider this a landlord-tenant issue. And by law, it has to be handled through the housing court, not with police.
If you own this house, you would not want her inside.
I don't own it.
Exactly,
Yes.
she does.
Yes, but then once again, you should know how the law works.
I do know how it works.
There's rules to the as you got to go to court and send me to civil court.
He says he signed a lease in October, but wouldn't tell us with who.
I got proof longer than that.
Show us the proof.
But who are you for me to show? I showed it to cops.
Dan with Channel 7 News. If you don't want to show it, you don't want to show it.
Proof. Come here, brother. I like that.
I would like to see it.
He didn't show me a lease.
This is a bill.
A bill for work he says he had done to the house. He didn't show police a lease either.
The police department doesn't have the lease?
No.
He's got no documentation.
Just bills.
So Adele, you're getting arrested right now?
I'm being arrested
For what?
for being in my own home.
And where's your lease?
She's fighting the house. It's not her house anymore.
My deed
That's
is
what was
current
told
and
her.
legal.
Arrested for unlawful eviction. She changed the locks on a man who claims he lives there.
So how does this all end then? When do you leave?
The way it ends is either she pays me my money that I put into the house, pay me the money, and I'll leave, or send me to court, and we deal with the judge in court.
Yeah, what money
It's
was
that
that?
simple.
Where you lease it from?
It's not that simple. It's a long
It's a long process. Yeah, it is. After Queens woman is arrested for changing the locks, squatter demands $18,000 to leave her home. This is not unheard of. This is a practice that's called cash for keys. Unfortunately, it does happen, and because of the certain protections put in place for even criminals like this, because this is a criminal act right here. These squatters are stealing someone else's property, someone else's income, because for those of you that don't understand, because this whole ideology is like a class warfare thing. It's like you have a home, therefore you have stuff. And then there's the have-nots. People that just don't understand what it means, what you have to sacrifice in order to own a home, to live that so-called American dream. But you're living an American dream and being punished for it. That's just so stupid. If a house is sitting vacant for a while and property owners don't know this, they end up having to deal with this awful situation where they could find themselves in handcuffs for just trying to protect their own home. It's their right to protect their own home. But somehow, somewhere, because homeowners are hated, property owners are hated by the state, by anyone Marxist. They just hate anybody that owns anything because they prefer the state owns it, because somehow that's always been better. Yeah, point me to a country where that's worked, and maybe I'll give you some. I'll yield to you on that point. But until then, no. Anyway, let me pull up John Stossel's video because it talks about how the law protects squatters, and I think he also highlights a case where there's a group that deals with these squatters legally.
In 6 months, you haven't paid rent. It's my house.
It is his house, but the man inside who won't pay rent keeps him from using it. Likewise, the owner of this house left town for 3 weeks, only to return and find
there were cars in the driveway and people inside.
When he confronted them, they said,
No, we're living here. We have a lease.
The squatters didn't have a lease. But today, squatters often claim they do, go to a house and take it over. Bizarrely, laws favor the squatter.
In New York State, you cannot legally lock a squatter out of your home or turn off utilities.
Yep.
And once a squatter is there for 30 days, they are classified as a tenant.
Is there anything a homeowner can do about it? Well, Flash Shelton came up with a clever idea.
This man is on a mission to take back his parents' house after he says squatters moved in.
I just felt like, if they can take a house, I can take a house.
This was his mom's house. She left it briefly after his dad passed away. When squatters took over the house, Shelton did what I would have done.
I called law enforcement, and there was nothing they could do.
Why can't the cops evict somebody?
Because the crazy laws don't allow them to.
So Shelton came up with this bizarre solution.
I realized I could go in as the squatter myself, gain possession of the property.
Yeah.
Because the law so favors squatters, he became a squatter. When the home invaders left for a few hours, Shelton slipped into the house and changed the locks.
I had them locked out before they even knew that somebody wanted them out.
The squatter comes back, finds the door locked, screams, says, I have a right to be there, and you just don't let him in?
I don't let him in.
After that work, Shelton started SquatterHunters.com, a business that tries to help others get their houses back. In Los Angeles, he confronted the man who took over this house.
He answered an ad to rent a room. And before he was accepted to rent the room, he walked in with a backpack and he refused to leave. I decide to go do a squatter intervention, and I show up with cameras and surprise him in the driveway. I understand you've been squatting at this residence?
No.
No?
No, I have a lease.
You have a lease?
Huh?
Okay.
But he soon admitted.
And you have a lease?
No, she didn't want to give me a lease.
This squatter is Adam Fleischman. He was rich once.
My good friend Adam Fleischman, Umami. How are you, Adam?
Here he is being interviewed about starting the Umami Burger restaurant chain.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What? You started the Umami Burger? The nearest location to my place shut its doors down a few months ago. Overpriced burgers, but they did have a really good truffle burger. But before continuing on here, when I was doing an open house for leasing, so I was renting out a duplex for my client, and I was inviting people over. There was like 1,000 people that showed up. Okay, so very clearly I was posting it, and it was official, showing there was an agency, and I was there. I had to be present. From the first person that entered to the last person that stepped out, I got to make sure I lock everything up. And I had that place under surveillance because you never know. Someone could take advantage of an empty property that's all fully furnished and then claim that they were leased to. So anyway, I would get calls from people telling me they're responding to my ad. And if it's still for this price, I'm like, oh, that's not the price that's listed for. And I'm like, where'd you see the ad? So I saw it on Craigslist. It's like, that's interesting because I didn't post it to Craigslist. And some people will respond to me and say, oh, I saw your ad on Facebook. That's interesting because I didn't post it to Facebook. There is this group that also steals from tenants and pretends to be the homeowners and lease them out to these individuals only to run away with their money. And it's an awful business. So there's a dark side to that too. But it's also another way to kind of be like a dog whistle to those that want to squat. We're like, oh, look, it's empty. I can go. And they take some of those ads, and like the situation here that happened, someone that found that Umami Burger ended up squatting in the place. Well, she didn't want to give me a lease. Come on. And he still took it anyway?
Successful guy who started restaurants.
Yeah, I've seen video clips of him on TV. He was kind of a little famous on his own. So it made no sense.
We tried to reach Fleischman without success.
What are you hoping to gain here?
I'm not trying to gain anything. I'm a victim here.
How is he a victim?
The video shows him just so entitled, and it just really couldn't make any sense out of what he was saying.
The city still protects tenants whether they get a lease or not. You didn't know that?
I'm laughing because
the city regulations.
It's so arrogant.
Yeah.
Just the words and the arrogance.
The squatter even called the police. This wasn't his house. He has no legal right to be there.
So he felt that since he had possession of the house, which is true, that he had the right to call law enforcement and have me removed.
And where does he hear this, that he has this right to squat?
The city was telling him this.
The LA City Council approved a package of new policies Friday aimed at protecting tenants.
City politicians are so eager to favor tenants, they protect squatters. But now Shelton was a squatter.
That's true. Because I said that the city, the state, particularly California, and other left-wing blue states absolutely hate property owners. Over here, they even did away with single-family zoning because they said it was racist. Huh? They try to cite a case study from Berkeley that happened, almost 100 years ago, or whatever it was. And like, wait, single family homes have existed since the first person that put up a home. But whatever, let's just say it was invented for racism. And that's how they did away with it. So now single family zoning is gone. And now you can build up to 4 units, depending on the size of your lot, in your supposed single family residential area. That's basically trying to urbanize a suburban area. And when you urbanize, well, guess what? It's already in place. In the case of California, we have statewide rent control. Does not apply to single-family homes. But as soon as you turn that into another unit, now it's a duplex at least, now it applies to the property. See what they're doing here. And in the instance of Los Angeles, where you have one of the strictest rent controls in the entire country, their entire goal, as stated on the rent stabilization ordinance, of what they can do to your property is take it over from you because you don't know how to manage it. And so therefore, they'll manage it for you. You'll still be paying for the mortgage. You'll still be paying for the insurance. You'll still be paying for the utilities. You'll still be paying for the registration of the property that's required by the city for you to be able to rent that out. But you're not going to collect the rent. How the hell does that work during 2020, during the lockdowns, where everything was at a standstill and all the tenant protections were in place? Guess who was left holding the bag? The property owners. When did they become a business to be a charity? Oh, but they could have deferred their mortgage. You know how that worked? First off, it didn't. And secondly, you can only do it for about 6 months. And at the end of the 6 month period, you got to pay all those 6 months of worth of mortgages plus the 7th on the same day. How can you do that without income? They really hate property owners. And this fool, this arrogant fool, knows that. And he was leveraging it to his advantage.
Or two, one who threatened to bring his friends.
We'll be here to help you leave. More the merrier.
Only then did Adam Fleischman get a mover and leave. People think of these people as homeless, destitute.
They are not homeless people. They're criminals. They're people that are taking advantage of the system.
And you're harassing me.
I have a
you're
lease.
Harassing me.
I have a lease for this property.
This woman claimed to be a caretaker for the elderly owner of this house, but the owner wanted the woman out. She gave Shelton a lease.
I have a lease for this property.
I don't give a the guy. You haven't introduced yourself to me. I don't even know what the you look like.
I've left
you ain't
notices.
gonna be sneaking up on me in the middle of the night.
Notices.
You ain't gonna be sneaking up on me in the middle of the night.
One day when she was out, Shelton went into the house and changed the locks. But the squatter is still there?
Still there, climbing through the window because she doesn't have access to the main house.
So she's still there for how many months?
She's been there for 2 years.
2 years? Now someone started a GoFundMe page to help the elderly homeowner. Once she finds a new residence, then you and maybe your 6 friends will move in. And that works?
That will work.
How do you know?
Because she'll have to leave. And once I take possession, then she'll have to fight in court to try to get back in. And most likely, she won't do that.
You ever worry about the squatter attacking you?
Yeah.
Well, I don't go in anymore by myself.
You're trespassing. And you're harassing me.
How do the squatters manage to think of themselves as victims?
Landlords are social parasites.
Here we go.
They provide no social value.
Maybe squatters listen to people like this new school
Democracy at
professor,
work.
a self-described Marxist who calls landlords parasites.
Go to hell.
They are so focused on extracting money that they perceive people's basic need for a shelter as an opportunity to generate substantial profits.
And how do you get the shelter
without having to do very much, if any, work?
This socialist on TikTok has more than 1 million followers.
Goodness.
She says landlords
Are granted and guaranteed forever incomes without actually having to put in any labor.
They don't put in labor?
This house is sold.
Who do they think buys the land, pays lawyers to decipher the excessive regulations, hires architects, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, pays the taxes, and manages the property?
They should make an income because they're actually helping.
But city politicians now win elections trashing landlords. And laws are so anti-landlord that homeowners sometimes get arrested if they change locks to get a squatter out.
Arrested for unlawful eviction.
This woman had come into the house she owned and confronted squatters.
You shouldn't be trying to steal my house. Yes, you are.
She locked the squatter out, but he broke back in.
You broke through the front door.
Officer.
The squatter then called the police, and the police told the owner to leave.
So why is it that I have to leave and he doesn't have to leave?
Because technically he can't be kicked out. We need to go to court.
Then she got arrested because this squatter knew the magic words to say to police. I have a lease. But when this reporter said,
I would like to see it.
He didn't show him a lease.
This is a bill.
Law enforcement can't even ask for the lease because they're not allowed to decipher if it's a real lease or not.
You should know how the law works.
I do know how it works.
There's rules to the as you got to go to court and send me to civil court.
Some homeowners just throw up their hands, give up.
Homeowners can't afford this.
That's true.
So at some point, they're making the decision if it's worth it to even fight or just walk away from their homes.
Thank you for making that point because, like I said, A lot of people just don't understand the overhead that goes into owning a property. Who wants to make that sacrifice? Look, this is when I educate my buyers when they're going to graduate seriously from being a tenant to a homeowner. I tell them, all right, let's sit down and have a real conversation. Because for those of you that maybe hated your landlord because they're charging me rent, they raised my rent this year. Yeah, they are entitled to raise your rent every year. But they would always have this like almost coming to Jesus moment when I start telling them, okay, these are the expenses that you will anticipate to have as a homeowner. And I said, besides the mortgage, besides your property taxes, that's either one lump sum or you're breaking into two bills in the year, which is perpetual. In perpetual, the property taxes are perpetual, despite the fact that you finish paying your mortgage in say 25, 30 years, however you're planning that out. Not to mention the down payment you're putting in. And if you're going to make improvements to the home, that's a whole other story. Not to mention the insurances that you need to get on your property, depending on where you find it. In the case of California, it could be a fault line, so you need earthquake insurance. It could be fire hazard insurance, flooding insurance, depending on where it is. It could be all three. Homeowners insurance can be like an umbrella for all of it, and you have to keep it. And you need title insurance, because title insurance requires you have those other things. That you lose the insurance over there, you lose title insurance, then your mortgage gets pissed. So then they start coming on you. And if you do not get that title insurance, they will take the property from you. All these things can happen and people don't understand it. So I sit down and explain this all to them. And a lot of them like, you're caught in the headlights. It's like, are you for real? It's like, yeah. And that's not even counting the idea that you want to rent to somebody else. Depending on where you are, this is what you got to face when you're dealing with a rent stabilization ordinance. And believe me, a lot of people, even though I tell them all this, I would say 90% of them that are already able and willing go on to become a homeowner. They just need to know how deep the waters are when they're jumping into it. And that's what I love to see them graduate into this. But it isn't until then that they understand that if they had issues with their landlord, I'm not saying all landlords are good either, and I'm not saying all tenants are bad either. But in that situation, that's when they realize, like, dude, I understand them more. Exactly. But there are some punk landlords there too. I agree. I've dealt with them. So I'm not trying to throw an envelope where it's like tenants are bad and landlords are good. No, it's people. Okay, people can be bad or good. So it's the luck of the draw.
And then the squatter wins.
It is infuriating. I'm glad people like Flash Shelton fight back.
So where do squatters' rights come from? One of the best answers I've been able to find on the subject, especially in the condensed version, comes from attorney James L. Erasmus. The origin of California's squatting law dates back to the gold rush era in the 19th century when land disputes were common. It was not specifically designed to protect squatters, but rather to provide a legal framework for resolving land ownership disputes and to prevent unjust evictions. Under adverse possession laws, squatters may eventually gain legal ownership of the property if they openly and continuously occupy it for 5 years, pay property taxes, and meet other specific criteria. This law aims to balance the rights of property owners with the principle that unused land should not go to waste. In October 2023, California Senate Bill 602 added limited protections from trespassers and squatters. All right, that was great. I think that's where I'll leave it on this video. I think I covered a lot of ground here in understanding the whole dynamics of squatters' rights, what's actually happening, and some people that are trying to fight back and do something lawfully. That's faster than the freaking court system because they really don't care here in Los Angeles. But that's why you need to start paying attention to local politics instead of the DC circus that's always happening and it's perpetual to the 24-hour news cycle. That's why when this like, how did this happen? You weren't paying attention. Local elections matter. That's why I'll leave it. Thank you so very much for watching this episode of the Andres Segovia Show. Remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening on the podcast. I appreciate you all the same. All my stuff is available at www.segovia.com. Follow me across the socials at the Andres Segovia or on X _Andres Segovia. And I'll see you in the next one.